Hello students, I Dr. Shishma Kuswhaha welcome you all on behalf of STEMS Engineering Management and Technology Greater Noida into the series of Human Resource Management, a subject of BBLLB third sem. In today's session, we'll be discussing about the traditional methods of performance appraisal, and as into the previous session, we have discussed about the introduction of performance appraisal, and we've discussed the various methods of performance appraisal in brief. So in today's session, we'll be discussing about the traditional method of the performance appraisal. Let's begin the session now. So traditional method, it is also known as the trait approach, and these method may lay more emphasis on rating of individuals' personality trait, such as initiative, dependab- dependability, drive, creativity, integrity, intelligence, leadership, potential, etc. Into this, a list of 10 to 15 personal characteristics may be listed to evaluate the traits in a person. So the first method is ranking method. It is the oldest and simplest method of performance appraisal. In this method, the employee is ranked from the highest to the lowest or from best to the worst. Thus, if there are 10 employees, the best employee is given the first rank and the worst employee in the group is given the 10th rank. However, this method may also have some limitations too. Like it is difficult to adopt this method in case of evaluating large number of employees. It is difficult to compare one individual with other having various behavioral traits. The next method is the paired comparison method. Paired comparison method is a method in which every person is compared trait-wise with other persons, at a time. And number of times one person is compared with other is tallied on a piece of paper. So each employee will be compared, and this method makes judgment easier as compared to ranking method. The number of times the employee is rated, as better the comparison will be, and it better in comparisons with others determine his or her final ranking. The total number of comparison can be ascertained by the formula where n will be the number of employees to be evaluated. So the concept can be illustrated with the help of the following example. For example, in class, we are supposed to evaluate the 5 students named as Ashok, Beena, Chitra, Dinesh, Alan have to be evaluated for the best student award, and the total number of comparison would be 10. So let's see how we'll be comparing these. A will be compared with B, and then A will be compared with C, and B will be compared with C. Then A will be compared with D, and B will be compared with D, and C will be compared with D. Then again A will be compared with E, and B will be compared with E, and C will be compared with E, and D will be compared with E. The number of times a student gets a better score would be the basis for selecting the best student. This method is again not appropriate if a large number of students are required to be evaluated. Forced distribution method. This technique was contributed by Joseph Tiffin. This method operates under the assumption that an employee performance can be plotted in a bell-shaped curve. Here, 10% of the employees are given excellent grade and 20% are given good grade. 40% are given the average grade. Next 20% are given the below average grade. And the last 10% are given unsatisfactory grade. So we can have a look to this bell-shaped curve. So into this, 10% employees are having the excellent grades, 20% are having the good grades, 40% are having the average grades, and 20% are having the below average, and 10% are having the unsatisfactory grades. But in this method, employees are placed into correct category and not ranked within the category. And this method is based on the questionable assumption that all groups of employee have the same distribution of good or poor or performances. The rater does not explain why an employee has been placed into a particular category. So specific job related criteria is not used in rating. So force distribution is feasible for a large group of employees. The next method is the forced choice method. This method was contributed by J.P. Guilford. Here, an evaluator rates an employee on the basis of group of statements. These statements are a combination of positive and negative statements and are arranged in blocks of two or more. The rater is required to identify the most or least descriptive statement pertaining to an employee. For example, provides clear guidance to employees, can be dependent to complete the assignment on hand, is reliable and trustworthy, is partial to some employees. Checklist method. The main purpose of this method is to reduce the evaluator's burden of rating the employee. In this method, a dichotomous questionnaire, that is a question with two answers choices, namely yes or no, is used. A rater is required to put a tick mark against the respective column. So for example, if we want to, a questionnaire is prepared and scored by the HR department. The main disadvantage of this method is the rater is not given the flexibility to add or delete these statements. A typical checklist for students is given here. So we can have a checklist that is the student regular, yes or no. If or he is he or she disciplined, yes or no. Does he or she complete the assignment on time, yes or no. Does he or she participate in extracurricular activities, yes or no. So beyond this we cannot go and we cannot rank the student. So these are the four checklists on the basis of which we may uh, evaluate the performance of the student. So the next method is the critical incident method. This method evaluates an employee on the basis of certain events or episodes known as critical incident. The underlying principle of this method is there are certain significant acts in each employee's behavior and performance which make all the difference between success and failure of the job. Thus, in this method, the rater focuses his attention on all those factors that make a difference between performing a job in a noteworthy manner. The next is the essay method. Essay method, in this supervisor writes a report about the employee which is based on his assessment. And in this method, the rater writes a narrative description of an employee's strength, weakness, past performance, potential, and suggestions for the improvement. As there is no prescribed format, the length content of essay is likely to vary. Similarly, the quality of essay also would depend upon the rater's writing skill, as the essays are descriptive in nature. The last is the confidential report. This is a traditional method of evaluating an employee's performance. It is normally used in government department and small business units. Here, the evaluation is done by the immediate boss or supervisor. The main limitation of this method is the ratings are generally not discussed with the employee, only in case of adverse remark. With this, I end this session. Thank you very much. For any further query, you can contact me at shishma.gn@jagannath.org. Thank you very much.